Good morning and welcome to Judging by the Cover, the gaming review show where I rate games that I have not played and I score them based on the store pages. Now, this week started the FIFA World Cup. And I thought, it would be appropriate to go ahead and jump in and do something relating to soccer or football, depending on where you are in the world and what you call it. Um, my first thought was to take a look at like whatever official FIFA games there were out there, but that would require me to look at another EA game. And the last time I looked at an EA game, I believe it was that Madden one, a couple of months ago. And honestly, I was not a fan. And when I started looking at the trailers for that EA soccer game, I was like, it looks graphically like they really went hard on the realism to make the players look like the players. But I'm like, you know what? No, 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 no. Let's go in a different angle. And I decided Mario Strikers. That's right. We are pivoting over to Nintendo so that we can look at the Nintendo Switch store page for Mario Strikers Battle League, released in 2022, I believe it was, for the Nintendo Switch series of consoles. Now, I have never once in my life played any Mario Strikers game. So I am going into this pretty blind with what we have to look at. Now, graphically speaking, the character models look good. They look very expressive, animated. Their special moves are pretty cool there. The hard line art, like it looks good. Like if I'm gonna tab over to this real quick, the cover art with the heavy line work really looks like it delivers a kind of like tone and message that they want to. But then when I see that same line art spliced into the gameplay, I get that those are meant to be like the high impact moments, but I don't know. Maybe personally for me, it just feels kind of weird, but we're going to get into that later on as we get into the review. Anyways, we're looking Mario Strikers Battle League for the Nintendo Switch for this week's Judging by the Cover. Again, remember, I have never played one of these games, so we're going in pretty blind, and I may be making some comparisons to other games that I have played in this process while I figure this game out. Starting off, we're going to go through the trailers first, which now, trailers are something when it's on the Nintendo Switch. One of the main things I have complained about with the Switch's presentation of things, especially when things are available on other platforms like Steam, where they have a lot of trailers. Like something on Steam could have 3, 4, 5, 10, or 44 trailers, which honestly, if you have 44 separate trailers for your game on Steam, you might want to downsize a little bit. But here, we actually have multiple trailers on this Switch page, which tells me the Nintendo Switch is capable of having multiple trailers for their games on the store page. They don't have to put everything into one video. So the first two trailers are basically the actual release trailers for the games. The first one showing a little snippet of the main characters, the artwork, the graphics, the tone, and the style of the game, with very small snippets of gameplay when it zooms out onto the field or zooms in for some of the high impact gameplay. The second trailer, in a similar vein, how long is this one? The second trailer goes into a little bit more depth, being a near 5 minute trailer where they actually go and talk about the game a little bit in a way that kind of gets you excited and gets you into the meat of the gameplay, at least on a cursory level, which honestly, a game like this could use it because there are going to be. This isn't a simple Mario game, or this isn't a simple Mario game. It's not a simple soccer game. They go into some of the details in this trailer talking about how the game is basically like it's like soccer, but it's not soccer. You basically take the rules of soccer, smash them into a wall, put them into a grinder, and then dump them out the window. That's the best way I can describe it. Like you got your cleats, you got tackles, you got all kinds of gear. If anything, I get the impression that it's less like soccer and more like gobble or gabal. however you pronounce that. If anybody has seen Wakfu or they're familiar with the Crossmaster franchise, where they have like an in-universe sport that's like some kind of weird mix of football, soccer, hockey with magic gear, and where cheating is actually like a part of the game, it seems more like that. It's just kind of skinned to be very soccer-esque, which that's not a criticism. That is not a criticism. That is only an observation that I am making. I want to make that clear. I know these things can be a little contentious for fans of series and franchises and sports in general, where, if you make too many comparisons, they might think you're overly critical of things. Anyway, that is just kind of what I'm getting here. They go and talk about the hyper strikes, they talk about the special moves, special effects, how each character is different on their stats, and then there's going to be more depth into all of that later. They also talk about some of the game modes, such as you can get like a pickup play for a quick play after you build your team, put them together. There's what was another big thing? They have like a club mode where you and 20 other players are basically playing in a club or a league in an isolated thing. So it's basically those 20 players going against each other through a season. Um, which honestly, that's kind of a cool thing. I feel like in the Pokemon game, there's friendly tournaments that you've been able to use, which I haven't actually used all that much because you need to get like enough people to sign up for them to really get people matching up in those. But you can set like different rules and regulations. I imagine these ones with the leagues are probably pretty similar. They do talk about an 8-player mode. Now they say there's 10 players on the field, but 2 of those players are goalies, which appear to be computer controlled. The goalie is basically just its own little script, which that's fine. Your goalie is like completely separate from the rest of the game, but you can actually have 2 teams of 4 people going head to head with one switch handling up to 2 players at a time, which that's also a pretty cool dynamic. Being able to set up, if you get like a room of people or a party of people with multiple switches and games, it'd be a cool way just to kind of have some people in a room in an environment. Now, I haven't done, like I said, I haven't played this, but I have done stuff like that with the Super Smash Brothers series. I'm not versed in the most recent of Super Smash Brothers, but I have had Super Smash Brothers on the Wii and the Wii U, I believe it was at the time, where I did play those. And on the original Switch too. I did used to play a little bit of Super Smash Brothers on the Switch, but kind of fell off. Not even on a competitive scale because the competitive play on that is wild. But in a group setting, you just get some friends together. None of you all really know how to play at a high level, but you're just having a good time smashing each other's faces in. It looks like it offers that opportunity with this one, and then you can also have the different levels of play depending on whether people are new or experienced or actual competitive tier players, depending on how that develops. They talk about the stadiums in the trailer where you basically set a half a stadium to your team, but then when you're playing against somebody else, their stadium comes in and they come together to fill the 2 halves and make a complete arena, which graphically is actually pretty cool that you can have that bit of flair and personality to your game isolated in the arena like that. Now, it is just an aesthetic thing that it looks like. It doesn't look like the stadiums have additional effects or perks for them. At least they don't talk about them here. So I am assuming that the stadiums are purely cosmetic and you basically pick it to fit an aesthetic that you, the player, want to have. An aesthetic that you can maybe match to your team. If your team is all centered on like a theme, like a villain team on a Bowser Castle type of stadium, or a hero team, or a team of, say, like monster race or animal type characters kind of thing where you're playing as like Bowser, Toad, Yoshi, like all creature type of characters instead of the human characters. Depending on how you want to build your team, or if you want to build your team on stats, you can be that kind of player too if you're not playing for an aesthetic. They talk about the gear, where the gear is actually boosting your character's stats So you can basically build and customize your team a little bit to kind of round out their stats or to max, like to try and min max certain aspects of certain characters. So if you have a high power character, you can go ahead and max out their power stat while go ahead and sacrificing their speed or something, and maybe have a speed character try and use this team tackle mechanic to try and push them forward, depending on how well you want to go with that. Now, I did say before that they also throw out the rules of soccer. You do see the characters using the hands a lot. They talk about the strike orb, which is basically this game's smash orb from Super Smash Brothers, which also kind of cool. The fact that they have these special moves with their own unique effects that actually affect the field and the opposing team. That's kind of a cool thing to look at, on top of getting bonus points for it too. So, there's a lot of variety to this gameplay, and how like the choices you make for building your team can center on all of these things with their stats and their special moves. So there's a lot of variety here, and this 5-minute trailer goes a long way to show that. I know I might sound like I'm kind of rambling as we're going along this, but it's genuinely cool how that is. The next 3 trailers, we're just going to go ahead and coast through them real quick. These are update trailers. Now they're in reverse order again. I don't know if like how they manage these things or how they organize these things, but number 3 is first. Basically, each of these update trailers adds 2 characters, 1 stadium, and 1 set of clothing, or at least that's what they're advertising for each of these update videos. Each one is about 80 to 90 seconds long, where they showcase the 2 new characters. They showcase the item, the gear set, and a little bit of the stat changes that it affects. So this one gives us Bowser Jr. and Birdo. Honestly, that's kind of cool. Birdo is an absolute icon. By the way, happy Pride Month, everybody. They have, of course, their own special moves related to their styles, their lore. Birdo just being an absolute queen, and I love it. They again showcase the shellfish gear, so the shellfish helmet and how it affects the players. The urban rooftop was a part of this one. And again, there's 3 of these 90-second trailers, each one showing a different pair of characters, outfit, and stadium. So that's kind of a cool thing to see here. And on top of that, these updates were free. These were not paid DLC the way that extra characters in Super Smash Brothers was, which I know that was a bit of a contention there. Like, they added so many characters, but they made them that they basically paywalled them for DLC. This one, I believe, was Pauline and somebody else. Okay, Pauline and Diddy Kong. So a couple of side characters that, really deserve some spotlight, especially with Pauline taking the stage with the microphone, kind of leaning into her recent singer status between both the new Donkey Kong and Mario Odyssey, with how her role in those games was as a singer. And then the last one showcases 2 other characters adding in, but we're going to go ahead and skip by that. I do recommend looking at it. If this game interests you, give these update trailers a look, because they absolutely give these characters the flair and personality that they deserve, I think. This one giving us Daisy, which Daisy having that sassy attitude all the time, I am all for it. But let's go ahead and skip ahead to the last 2 trailers, which is I believe a 7-minute and a 5-minute trailer, and I'm not going to be sitting through the entire trailer while we go through this, but this one is showing striker strategies with gear and developer play. So basically, this is a showcase with the developer talking about the gear and the attributes and how you function these things to build your strategy. They showcase a couple of characters. They explain each of the stats, not in tremendous detail, but enough so that a new player can kind of get an idea of what they're looking at. And for somebody who is thinking of picking up the game, I would highly recommend looking at this, because this seems to be a multiplayer and competitive focused game. So players knowing and understanding these stats, at least at a baseline, seems to be fundamental for a player's enjoyment and understanding of the game. They go and talk about the gear and how the gear affects your stats, so that different, like for example, different headgear will boost your speed or shooting or passing or technique, even by just a little bit, while you maybe sacrifice another stat for the boost. And then after all of this, they go into a full blown game where they showcase the entire game, and which appears to be a bit of a 4 minute like quick battle format. The way a lot of games that they want it to be kind of a condensed experience. They don't want them to be dragged out like a regular 90-minute soccer game. But in that 4 minutes, they do show a lot of things going on where they went and just basically min-maxed the two steams, each one for an individual stat, one for shooting and one for technique, to kind of showcase how those two stats might affect the gameplay a little differently. They go and commentate the whole thing, do some quick replays, and I did sit down and watch this with my wife, who is a longtime soccer aficionado, total fan. Like, she is looking forward to getting to watch some of the games on stream. She follows the local team and their gameplay and kind of keep all that going. So again, this is basically technique versus shooting min-maxing, going back and forth. They showcase the actual game. I don't think we see any of the actual super moves go off, but we do see at least one of the teams pick up the smash ball. I'm just going to call it the smash ball. They just don't use it in the game. And again, this is something I would recommend for anybody thinking about buying this game, to actually watch these trailers and see these things, just to kind of get an idea of what it is. Since it's not a story driven game, it's not really a matter of like, oh my gosh, spoilers kind of situation. These are all there for you, the players and the viewers, to start to learn the game before you really dive into it and maybe get matched up against somebody who has a little more experience, especially considering that this game is 4 years old and probably has some players in there that are in like random online ladders that will just curb stomp anybody who's picking it up for the first time. That would be me. If I were to pick up this game for the first time, I would get absolutely stomped. And then the last trailer is another 5 minute showcase where they're talking about the Battle League. Go ahead and just jump forward a little bit. They talk about some of the other mechanics like the dash, and this one is probably even more important than the last trailer. They go into a little depth of some of the mechanics and gameplay. This is basically like your tutorial video where they talk about dashes, passing, team plays, positioning around the goalie, all kinds of those little mechanics, which as an advertisement, it's a little long-winded and is not exactly something that will entice somebody to buy or not buy the game. But for somebody who is already thinking about doing about making this purchase, being able to see these things up front before you make that purchase can be very helpful, so that you can kind of get a glimpse of the actual mechanics of the game instead of getting thrown in completely blind. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes picking up a game completely blind can be a little fun, but when you're up against other people who, again, are going to be more experienced than you, having these kinds of heads up tutorials can be nice. Now, I know that this is also 2026, the digital age, where if somebody really wanted to learn about these things on their own time, they could go on YouTube or Twitch or any other video platform that people upload to and play on, and watch some gameplay of this. And maybe there'll be like other tutorials and stuff on YouTube where you have people break down things into deeper mechanics. There's probably like some kind of a wiki somewhere where you can look up some of the actual numbers behind the mechanics and the programming of it. But to be able to see but to be able to see this information without having to go and do that hunt through third party information can be helpful for those new players. So I appreciate that this is out there. Next up, we have the screenshots, and there's not a lot of screenshots. There, we have one here that's basically just a color splash of Mario hitting the ball. I don't know if this screen is actually anything that even appears in the game, but it does make for a cool little backdrop. Again, the heavy line art is cool it's a very cool still shot, but seeing it in motion when it interrupts the 3D models, it's like, I get that they're going for a certain flash appeal to it, but I'm not certain that I'm really a fan of the art in like when it's in motion. Especially since a lot of this stuff is zoomed out. Like we see this was Luigi's tornado, likely inspired from his poltergeist. Poltergust? Yeah, the Poltergust vacuum cleaner. Easily inspired by that. You can even tell the green hint is definitely Luigi's Mansion coded. But with that, it doesn't show the field or the thing zoomed in because if they were to do that, they would take attention off the field when both players need to really be aware of everything going on the field. So if they were to zoom in, that would kind of take away attention from this unless it was like some kind of you're like they're guaranteed to score the goalie and nothing else is getting in there. There's not much to zoom in there. Next up, we have a smash coming in. Actually, oh wait, no, that's not a smash. That's a tackle. That looks like Donkey Kong tackling Toad. It's a little hard to tell because Toad is just a blur from the impact. This one might actually not. Yeah, this is not the best screenshot to throw in here. Maybe something where they had like a clearer shot of Toad, but freeze frames can be a little sloppy like that. I don't know. It's kind of cool, but to see it in a still frame that they actually chose to put on here for their showcase, I'm not entirely sold on their screenshot there. That might be that basically they don't have the best screenshots. Their video presentations are good. They got their short, concise presentations for advertising, and then they have the longer showcases to kind of learn a little bit about the game before diving in. So the video presentations are great. The screenshots, less so. We do see this, and we do see this whole thing with the green shell, and we do see some of the green shells bouncing around in the trailers, although they don't get explained a whole lot. They do tell us that you can unleash items in the game, which is probably what that is. Kind of like how Mario Kart lets you throw shells and drop banana peels. We do see those moving around in the trailers, so I'm guessing that the shell is another thrown item that somebody had tossed out there. They do show in the screenshots, and a fair chunk of the trailers is also showing these stat screens. Now, I know menus are something that I can kind of harp on in these games a little bit, and there's not a ton of menu stuff that I would expect to see in a game like this because you're not dealing with inventories and crafting and stuff like that. You just have your character stats and your gear screens. And we do see here that they have the 4 gear slots shown on the top of the screen. It's a little harder to pick this up unless you were to pause the trailer. So having this in the screenshots is incredibly helpful. We do see how this stuff is laid out. The information is very clear. They even show the numbers on the number scale for these stats. I know I've seen some games like this where they show stats on bars, but then you just kind of have to guess what those bars mean or how impactful those bars are. Here they actually give you a number for it, showing that they do cap off at 25. They show the chain helmet in particular that gives a -2 to speed and a +2 to passing. So you can kind of balance out Mario's stats a little bit that way. And then there's what 4 other pieces of equipment you can wear on your head, and or you can wear no gear. And if every piece of gear has both plus and minus, I could even see a point behind having no gear on a slot if there's nothing there that changes your stats in a way that you would want them to. And then we also have, again, the arms, body, and legs tabs over there, just L and R to tab over to them. You do have coins that you probably have to earn through the regular gameplay. We have another one here, the Strikers Club members. So this was also touched on in the trailers, where you have I believe they said up to 20 players in a club, basically competing against each other over the course of a season. So getting those in there, and depending on how that's scheduled, it would be kind of interesting to see how that's laid out. Or maybe a season is just a series of games that you play like in rapid fire back-to-back sessions. Kind of like how, again, relating to some Pokemon games having, instead of championships, you can have like friendly tournaments where you give a kind of a link code out, and whoever wants to participate in that can go ahead and jump in there. But this one this shows 6 players on here. It shows my striker as Wario. So I'm wondering these um if these if these things are basically the 20 players, but where each player is only playing as one individual character, and then you're teamed up with 3 other people for the duration of that season, or if it swaps up. I don't know, that'd be kind of cool to see. I know Splatoon handles matchmaking like that a little bit, where you can get teamed up with randoms, and if you stay in the same room, it might mix and match who is on which team. They're not really clear on whether you mix up who your team is or if you maintain the same team. Although, if you're going for a certain team ranking, I would imagine you probably keep the same team throughout the quote unquote season. And then we come back to the title card. So that is the trailers and the screenshots for Mario Strikers. So some of the like I said, some of the screenshots for Mario Strikers not too impressive. They basically just show the same thing the trailers had. Like this one showing the shell and the field. This is a decent screenshot. This one with the blurry Toad getting tackled, I'm not as big a fan of this one. This one is one of the better screenshots with Luigi's Twister. But then again, the one just before that was the Mario in the heavy outline with just a yellow splash background over the court lines. Like there's no other characters on the screen. This doesn't even look like it came out of the game. It looks like this was just kind of a promotional thing, like not even a screenshot from the game. So the screenshots are hit or miss, but then the two that show these menu sets with the stats and equipment and with the club screen, those are genuinely like good screenshots to include in here so that you can get a still frame and kind of get an idea of what you're looking at here. We even see at the top of the screen of the club roster that there is 12 out of 20 possible players in this club. So, you get a lot of information there just off of those like individual screens. Next up, in order to thoroughly analyze Mario Striker's store page, we do need to talk about its information and what they're advertising here. So, on to the store description. Tackle, pass, and score in battle soccer with the Mushroom Kingdom gang. Introducing Strike, a 5-on-5 soccer like sport with no rules. Get gritty and try to score the most goals by tackling enemies, using items, and pulling off score boosting hyper strikes. Super Mario series mainstays like Peach, Toad, and Yoshi put their cleats and stats to the pitch and will stop at nothing to score. Customize your characters with gear that can augment their stats and appearance. Take the Carnage online, asterisk, or pass the ball to players locally, double asterisk. Just look out for the electric fence. Join an online club to push and shove your way up the ranks. You band together with up to 20 strikers online and compete against other clubs for points. Find the right club for you, team up with friends, and bring your own striker style to the table. Strive to become the world's top club each season. So they are talking about seasonal gameplay with like ladder rankings where I'm guessing you get your team together with your buddies, and that basically sounds like Major League Gaming type of situation, like uh pro gaming or competitive like esports level of promotion that they're trying to do there. Pummel the pitch with up to 8 players. Up to 8 players can go for the goal in one Nintendo Switch system locally. Wait, up to 8 players can go for the goal on one Switch locally with online and local wireless. A player can bring along a secondary striker on the same system or pair up with up to 3 other systems, 2 players per system, 8 players total. Hold on. Up to 8 players can go for the goal on one Switch system locally. Okay, so once was so basically, if you have a nice big TV and you got your system docked and enough Joy Cons, it does sound like they give you the option to basically just have a Mario Strikers party with a group of 8 friends or 7 friends, assuming you have that many, or have more people in there and just kind of rotate people in and out. Like I said, I've done that with Super Smash Brothers. Had friends over, just had like kind of a Super Smash Brothers party or a Wii Sports party, trading out like somebody rotates out occasionally. Added characters, gear, and stadium available in a free update. Oh, that's right. So there's also updates. We did talk about those. They have the update trailers. They do highlight the updates here. So they do talk about this multiple times with the 3 updates. One added Daisy and Shy Guy with Night Gear and Desert Ruins. One added Pauline and Diddy Kong with barrel gear. That's kind of cool. Monkey around the Planetoid Stadium and check the newly added strikers ranking, also included. Oh, so they also added a ranking mode in that one as well. And then more characters and gear with Bowser Jr. and Birdo, Shellfish gear, and Urban Rooftop Stadium. So total of 3 stadiums, 3 outfit sets, and 6 characters have been added free of charge on top of the base game. They do also do a quick little highlight here, online and local wireless, where if you have multiple systems and multiple people, up to two people can be playing on a single system with up to two systems per team and up to four systems per match for online. So, if depending on how you're going or where people are, if you have, say, you and a roommate are part of a team, like a coordinated team that is playing, or you and a sibling or another family member, those two people can play off of one console. So that's pretty cool there. And the online, same thing for the online and local wireless with the Strikers Club and the Quick Battle. It's just kind of the same on both of those fronts. Now, all of that said, that this is a whole lot of information that they put out there that I think is genuinely a good presentation to have for the game. I do appreciate that they have the store page highlight that those free DLCs were added in there with those free updates, giving the players a little bit more to work with some extra variety in characters, moves, stats, and gear. Um, Graphically, we're going to go ahead and do our little breakdown of the game. Graphically, the game does look good. Now, it is zoomed out for the actual gameplay, which honestly, I would expect. You need to be able to, as a player, you would need to be able to see the field so that you can analyze what's going on. Now, the field does shift between left and right depending on where the ball is at, and all the characters do seem to move over. Um, so there's all of that stuff going on. You got to handle your characters well. Now, I do kind of wonder how the single player experience works for this. Like, if you're playing online, are you matched? Like, if you're playing quick games online, it's it's sounding like it's kind of like the Splatoon setup where you are controlling one single striker. I'm at least, like I said, okay, that's the impression that I'm getting here, is that it looks like you control one single striker with whatever loadout they have, and you probably get paired with three other randoms unless you're like in a group lobby, like with the clubs. Having the clubs going is a whole other option to go with. So if that's the case, I could see that being maybe a little easier to manage. Otherwise, I would wonder if they have some kind of a setting where you can play a single player campaign. They really don't talk about a single player campaign with computer controlled characters at all in this, which honestly, something like that or some kind of a practice or training mode with computer controlled characters seems like it would be a good idea. They make no mention of it. So I don't even know if they have that as an option. Even Splatoon has a whole single player campaign that, while yes, it does have an interesting story and level design to it, that campaign basically serves as kind of the game's tutorial, getting the player used to different weapons, different kinds of platforms, and how to go through all that. They're not really hinting at any of that throughout this entire presentation of all of their trailers and store page. Now, again, this is probably something, if I were to go into more than just this store page, I could probably look it up and find out. But honestly, the presence of a single player mode seems like something that should be included on the store page. So I have to kind of guess that maybe there isn't one, or if there is, it may just very well be. Oh, hold on, player. Okay, so yeah, just what we got there. I may have just glossed over it. So it does show here 8 players listed here, everybody queuing up. So like I said earlier, it does seem that that you are only controlling one character. It's not like other major sports games where you basically set your team roster and you have active control over whichever on-field player has the ball, but you are still single-handedly mostly controlling the team. Um, Considering that this is kind of a multiplayer battle arena type of situation, it makes sense that they would have each person being one, which, yeah, it does kind of make it feel a little MOBA like, kind of like League of Legends or, gosh, what was the Pokemon one? Pokemon. Crap, I even forget the name of that one. I even tried that one. But, the MOBA game. Except this time, instead of a top, mid, and bottom lane and jungling or fielding or like on-field bosses, it's basically just a single sports arena. Now, there's that. Now, sound-wise, the sound the sound design that I get from the trailers is passable. The music does seem a little generic. It's not exactly like the headbangers that you get from other games. Like other mainline Mario games have gotten some incredibly iconic music that people have remixed, that people have covered, or that even just the original orchestral versions are genuinely good to listen to, whether you're actively playing the game or not. Pokemon has a lot of music like that. Splatoon is themed off of music being a big part of the game's in-world culture. So the fact that this game feels kind of lacking on the music, at least how the music is presented in the trailers, it it feels very generic, like just kind of a standard rock guitar in the background going on. It's not really anything that stands out too much the way the Squid Singers or Pokemon Battle Stadium musics go on. The gameplay does look solid. If I were to get a chance to get now, this is not something that I'd be looking at buying for $60. That's a high price tag, and I believe that being a first party property, it's probably going to be worth that. I know I'm jumping ahead here, but for the gameplay, I would say that if I were with some people who wanted to get together and play this, I would be willing to go in having never played it, never experienced it, just to give it a shot. The gameplay does look solid. I'm sure, like, give me 2 minutes, give me like one round where I'm just pushing buttons, trying to figure out which button does what, and I'll be good to go. I'll be able to figure out what I'm doing, what I'm trying to work with stats on over a couple of extra matches, and I could have fun in a group of people with this. It's not something that I would personally go and buy to try and play myself, but I could see having a good time with this, especially with a group of friends. It's exactly that kind of game. The UI and the menus. Now, the UI, they do showcase the circle on the ball, so that but I feel like that kind of thing is going to be very difficult to look at and focus on when you're actively playing the game. So basically, that little bit of UI is probably very you have to just kind of get used to it as a player. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Any high action game like this, it is the kind of situation where you are going to have to strive to improve as you play to really get the most out of your experience. It's not the kind of game you just kind of pick up once in a while when the mood strikes. Like this is the kind of, they make this to be a competitive setting. So that part of the UI kind of cool. The UI, and again with the menus that I mentioned earlier, they do showcase a good degree of the menus as it relates to the stats, the item loadouts, and all of that stuff. It looks very intuitive, very easy to figure out. They do have the trailer that gives you a rough explanation of the stats. So once you have your head wrapped around what those stats mean, it gives you a little bit better idea of how you might want to build your characters or focus different characters in different roles in the game, especially if you're trying to coordinate with your team. Like, let's say you're running the strength build, but somebody else is running speed, so you try and coordinate with the speed guy, either getting the ball away from opponents to get it to you, so that you can barrel through the competition with it with a strong, or get somebody in there with a high shooting skill to try and get the ball in the goal. Basically, giving each person their own role based on those stats. And then finally, we're going to jump back down to the pricing. Now, again, $60 full price for this. There is a demo available for people that want to try it without necessarily dropping that $60 up front. So kudos for the demo. Now, this is a game that I'm looking at this. I personally would not buy this even at a 90% sale, most likely. But now I already know first party Nintendo's game, it's never going to go on a 90% sale. If you're gonna get it for a price like that, you got to find it like a garage sale or something. And even then, good luck, because they're gonna try and get some better money than that out of it. Anybody that knows what they're doing. But $60, that's just me. I would not personally buy it, even at the heavy discount, because I don't see myself spending much time with the game to really get the most out of it. But again, that is me. For people that like this kind of gameplay, that like the team based dynamic, or if you have friends that want to jump in and try and maybe do a little bit of ranking with this, you can absolutely, I believe that $60 for first party title might at least be partially worth it if you really want to. I would personally, if I was inclined for this kind of gameplay, I would maybe try and find it on a little bit of a sale, but $60 US $60 US currency. That is still a little high for me, especially if, like I said with my concerns earlier, they seem to lack a single player mode. They do have now I'm sure they have something in there for people to be able to play by themselves, because even local play, whether it's with a group or anything, I just think the store page needs to highlight if there is any single player at all and what it entails, because I'm sure some people go out there, get a game like this, and they don't necessarily have people to play with. They might not have the Nintendo Online subscription to be able to play online, and without people to play with, this game loses a lot of its value, I feel like. Um, Especially if there's a lacking in the single player department. Like Super Smash Bros. Even has computer controlled fighters that you can adjust the difficulty of. Super Smash Bros. Has campaign modes and challenge levels. And those, if I recall, those promotional materials, those store pages, they highlight those things in their advertising. This one only talks about the character stats and the multiplayer. So if you don't have the Nintendo Online membership, or you don't have people that you can get with to play this, honestly, it doesn't look like it's worth it. So that is kind of points against the game and the store page, since the store page is not really explaining or talking about that side of things at all. That said, we do have to go ahead and get into the scoring for this game. Now, the game itself, for what it is, like I said, it looks genuinely fun. If I'm meeting up with some friends and one of them suggests, "Hey, let's put on Mario Strikers. Have you guys played this at all? You guys would love this experience." I'd be like, I am all on board to try out a game that I have not played before with friends. If somebody were to bring Mario Strikers with them to plug into my Switch at my house on a our big TV, and have some friends over to play over here, I would gladly host somebody who brought the I would gladly host the game for if somebody brought it and plugged it into our dock, plugged it into my Switch so that we could, go ahead and give that a try. I think that would be a good time. But like I said, the store page is a little lackluster in half of its screenshots almost. Okay, one third of its screenshots are lackluster. The video presentations are great, but they are lacking the information for those solo players that can't go online or don't have like full groups of people to play with. So they really need to showcase a little bit better on what single player or computer controlled player uh, games might go on. Now, if there is like a full blown computer controlled thing, I could also see some amusement coming out of that. But again, we need to see that information in the store page if CPU players are an option. So, because of that, I am rating Mario Strikers Battle League for the Nintendo Switch a 5 out of 10. Now, remember, this is a rating for the store page. This is not me saying that the game is bad. Far from it. I believe that the game has merit. It is not something I would purchase, but I can absolutely see where this game has its appeal, has its audience, has its devoted player base. Hopefully, there's a devoted player base. Otherwise, the online play might get a little stagnant. Um, I could see it being a great party game to have people over and have a good time, just like Wii Sports, Smash Brothers, any of those kinds of games. Even the original Pokemon Stadium with rentals could have like party game modes to it where people just pick rental Pokemon and have a good time playing against each other. So I see the value in the game, but the store page is lacking on some important information to really tell certain groups of players if their $60 is warranted for this, or if they're going to just have something sitting on their shelf because they have nobody to play with. So I do have the people that I would recommend this to. I do have the people, I do have the respect for the game and the dynamics that it is giving us. It's just the store page there, it shows what it shows very well, but because of that lacking single player detail, I'm dropping it to a 5. I would raise it up if the store page highlighted like whatever single player or campaign mode options that it might have for somebody to play through on their own time apart from other players. But without that information, without knowing if there is something for me to do, if I were to just get this game today and not have an online play option, especially down the line, because Nintendo servers are not going to be forever. The Wii, what is it? Wii U and the DS and 3DS online functions no longer exist. So you know that eventually a couple of decades from now, you're not going to be able to play the Nintendo Switch or Switch 2 online. They're going to move on to new hardware. And then games like this could very well die out if you don't have a local player base or something like that to work off of, especially with the lack of a single player mode. So because of that, I'm having to give this a 5 out of 10. Again, I believe the store page, the information it gives is well presented, but they really need to step up on messaging the longevity of this game, or if this game is going to be good for like that only child who doesn't have like neighborhood friends or an online account to play with. Now, remember, everybody, these are just my opinions. I may be very off base on some of them because, again, we are judging this game by the cover, by its store page. So I have a very limited perspective and a limited basis for this rating and this score and this judgment. So if I'm completely wrong about something, leave a note in the comments down below. If there's something you agree with or disagree with, I always accept that constructive criticism, the constructive feedback. I do respect the differing opinions when it comes to our entertainment media. Um, Again, I'm sure that people who have played this game could probably tell me a lot more than what the store page is showing here. But based on what I am seeing between the trailers and the description, if you can agree with my position based on the information that I'm seeing, even if that information that I have is incomplete and you tell me that I'm wrong because the game does have that stuff, then by all means, let me know. I would like to know. Anyway, this has been our World Cup special for soccer or football or strike, however you call it. I know, just as a quick little side note, my wife did also have some notes. Like I said, um, she is a longtime soccer aficionado. She likes to support the local team. And I have gone to several games with her as somebody who is very not versed in sports in general, but I can kind of follow what's going on. Like some of the more in-depth rulings and callings is like, yeah, I might not like I don't necessarily understand off the top of my head or just by eyeballing it what offsides means, but I can kind of tell when somebody's being a little jerkwad on the pitch. Uh, she had some notes on this one saying that for just a few notes, real soccer players would not wear helmets. Those metallic claws that Bowser is wearing would be highly illegal. People using their hands is wrong. And Rosalina isn't even running, she is floating across the pitch. So, those are just a few of the notes that my wife had when she sat through these trailers with me. Honestly, it was kind of funny to get that perspective too, because again, this is very much a soccer coded game, but then they go and say right out the front, it's like soccer, but with no rules. And honestly, just the premise alone is already a good pitch for a game.